Hello. So the first part of this video, we are going to review a little bit because then you are going to have a quiz, shocking, about this information. And then we are going to talk about a different type of Punnett square. So all of this stuff is review of things that we covered in your last class. So once again, we have some special cases of genetic inheritance. So we have recessive and dominant, especially with pedigrees. So if we remember from last time, if we have a pedigree with females who are circles and males who are squares, where more of them have the trait, so they are colored in, that means it is most likely going to be a dominant trait. If we have a pedigree where we have fewer of them that are colored, and that's probably going to be a recessive trait. So as an example of that, this pedigree up on top has it in every generation, and we have a little bit more. Conversely, when we look at this, we can see how we do have the trait in every generation, but within each individual family, like within this family of like the threes and the fours, this family of the ones and the twos, it kind of skips some generations. So that is more indicative of being a recessive trait. Whereas in the first one, this family in the middle, they have it in every generation. And same thing with this family on the side, where they have a grandmother, a mother, and a son that all have that trait. So that's more indicative of a dominant trait. Just a reminder, being dominant does not mean better. Being dominant is polydactyl. So having 5 fingers on each hand is actually the recessive trait. So just a reminder, dominant and recessive don't mean good and bad. It's just a different way that traits are expressed. So same thing as well with being a carrier for a trait. If you are a carrier for a trait, does not mean that you have the trait. It takes 2 carriers for a recessive trait to make somebody that has cystic fibrosis. So just a reminder, cystic fibrosis is a very unfortunate recessive disease where you have a lot of buildup of phlegm in your lungs, and frequently these people don't live much past their 20s because of that medical condition. Okay. So just a reminder as well with some of our other traits, because these are going to be on your quiz. Remember, incomplete dominance, that is going to be a blending of traits. So our classic example that we use is with flowers. A red flower and a white flower are going to blend together to make a brand new third phenotype, which is going to be our pink flower. Same thing if we look at skin color, it's all a blend. So one trait is not more dominant over another. They all kind of blend together. Conversely, we have codominance. Where codominance, we have 2 traits. So we use an example of cattle. We have white cows and red cows that are actually brown, but we call them red, whatever. They blend together and they are going to make a spotted cow that we frequently call roan in coloration. So they're not going to blend together and make like a tan cow or a pink cow. We can clearly see red and we can clearly see white. So they are working together and we can see them both together. As a reminder, blood types are like this as well. So we have a couple different types of blood types. We have A, B, AB, and O. AB is the blood type that shows codominance, whereas the other ones show typical dominance and recessiveness. And then lastly, for our special traits that we talked about, we have sex-linked traits. These are going to be the ones that are carried only on the X chromosome. So if you are a male, to receive a sex-linked trait and be affected by it, you only need 1 copy because you only have 1 X chromosome. If you are a female, you need to have 2 copies of that sex-linked trait because you have 2 X chromosomes. This also means that males receive X-linked traits from their mothers because they have to receive the Y chromosome from their dad. So this is just a little bit of a reminder of those traits. So at this point, please pause the video and go take your quiz. Are you pausing? Pause the video, go take your quiz, and then come back. And we're back. Well, so we are going to look now at how scientists actually track two traits at once, because very rarely are we only looking at one thing at a time. Sometimes we want to look at the probability of two traits getting passed on to an individual, because sometimes two genetic conditions can actually, when mixed together, make a worse genetic condition, or they can help each other out. So we want to be able to track two traits at one time. This is done by using something called a dihybrid cross. So now this Punnett square, she crazy. She is 16 squares. She is the life of the party. So what we are doing now is we are finding two traits for each parent. So instead of a genotype being 2 letters, we now have 4 letters. It gets hairy. So we are going to start this way. So we have to find the genotypes for the zygotes. So for example, in rabbits, gray hair is dominant to white hair, and in rabbits, black eyes are dominant to red eyes. So if a heterozygous gray-haired rabbit that is homozygous for black eyes mates with a white rabbit with red eyes, what are the chances of receiving each phenotype? The first thing that I'm going to do in this problem is assign letters. So for example, in rabbits, gray hair is dominant to white hair. So what I am going to do is I'm going to use an H for hair. So gray hair is dominant. That's going to be a capital H. And then white hair is recessive. So that's going to be a lowercase h. Okay. And in rabbits, black eyes are dominant to red eyes. So for this, I am going to use an E for eyes. So black eyes are going to be a capital E, and red eyes are going to be a lowercase e. Oh my gosh, I just realized they're all going to say hee hee. Anyway, so if a heterozygous gray-haired rabbit, so heterozygous for gray hair, that means its hair alleles are different. So it's heterozygous for gray hair, and it's homozygous for black eyes. So that black eye allele is big E, and it's homozygous. So I'm going to have big E, mates with a white rabbit. So if it's white, it has to have 2 copies because that's recessive, little h, and it has red eyes. Red is recessive to black, so I need 2 copies in order to have that. What are the chances of receiving each phenotype? So what it's asking is, what are the chances I'm going to get a gray rabbit with red eyes, a gray rabbit with black eyes, a white rabbit with black eyes, and a white rabbit with red eyes if I mate these 2 rabbits together? Okay. So in my example, I used H and B for this. This is the old way of having to do this. She gets complicated. So I thought to myself, there has to be a better way. And there is. There is a better way to do this, and let me show you. So we already figured this out. In the example, I used B before, or E, we use B. It doesn't matter. You can use whatever you want. You can use hearts and stars, okay? So for this, I am going to make my first cross with just my H's, just my hair. So I have one parent that's capital H lowercase, and the other parent that is lowercase. So when I make my cross, I get that. Okay, so that is my cross for my H's. And now I'm going to do my cross for my B's. So I have big B for my other parent, and then I have little b for my other parent. So every single one of these boxes is going to be big B, little b. Okay. So just like we did before, we need to find the genotype percents for all of these. And then we are going to just do a little bit of multiplication. So for my hair color, I have a 50% chance of being big H, little h, which is gray, and a 50% chance of being little h, which is white. Okay. And over here, I have a 100% chance of being big B, little b, which would be, if I remember, black eyes. Okay. So the only combination of rabbits we can have is either gray with black eyes or white with black eyes. So the way that I am going to do this is we are just going to do a little bit of multiplication. So 50%, if I would write this as a fraction, would be half. And same thing for this one, it would be half. 100% as a fraction would just be 1. So all I do is multiply them together. So what this means is my chance of getting a gray rabbit with black eyes would be 1/2 multiplied by 1/1, which would be 1, right? So to multiply fractions, we multiply the top. So we do 1, multiply the bottom. 2 times 1 is 2. So I have half or 50% chance of having a rabbit that is gray with black eyes. Same thing for my white rabbit. So I have half times 1, half of a chance or 50% chance of having a rabbit that is white with black eyes. That is all we do. So if I do another example of this, but now I changed what the parents are. So I made them both totally heterozygous. So if I fill in my Punnett squares, then what I can do is figure out my phenotype percents and then multiply them out. So with my first one, I have 3 out of 4 chance of getting gray hair, and I have a 1 out of 4 chance of getting white hair. And you can do this with percents as well. I'm just using fractions. And then I have a 3 out of 4 chance of having black eyes, and a 1 out of 4 chance of having red eyes. So now with this, I have all different possibilities of bunny offsprings. I can have a gray rabbit with black eyes, a gray rabbit with red eyes. I can have a white rabbit with black eyes and a white rabbit with red eyes. So the way that I am going to do this, move my little self over here, is if I do my first one, so I want to find the chance of gray with black eyes. So I would take 3/4 times 3/4, and that's equal, 3 times 3 is 9, and 4 times 4 is 16. So I have 9 out of 16 chance of getting gray with black eyes. Now if I do my next one, if I have a gray rabbit with red eyes, gray, I have a 3/4 chance. Red eyes, I have a 1/4 chance. 1 times 3 is 3. 4 times 4 is 16. So I have a 3 out of 16 chance of getting gray with red eyes. Now, if I want to see my white with black eyes, I have a 1/4 chance of getting white eyes, 3/4 chance of getting black eyes. So 3 times 1 is 3. 4 times 4 is 16. 3 out of 16 chance. And last but certainly not least, a white rabbit with red eyes. I have a 1 out of 4 chance of getting a white rabbit times a 1 out of 4 chance of getting red eyes. 1 times 1 is 1. 4 times 4 is 16. Did a little bit of math, made it a little bit easier than the other way to do it of drawing out the whole big Punnett squares. It actually takes a lot less time to do this than the other one. So hopefully this helps. I have some practice problems for you to do. So please go back and refer to this video if you have any questions.